My name is Alara Quinn, and for most of my life, I believed I belonged somewhere. Not in a loud, obvious way. My family wasn't the kind that posted smiling photos or said, "I love you" out loud. But we had routines, and routines feel like love when you grow up inside them. Thursday dinners, always at my parents' house. Same table, same worn-out chairs, same quiet rhythm. My mother would cook too much food. My father would complain about work, and my brother, Caleb, would scroll through his phone until someone forced him to speak. And me, I was the one who filled the gaps. I asked the questions. I kept conversations alive. I made sure no silence lasted too long, because silence in my house always felt like something waiting to break. I thought that made me important, necessary, part of it. The first time I wasn't invited, it didn't feel like a moment. It felt like a mistake. I found out the next morning. A photo, just one, posted by Caleb. Plates on the table. Half-eaten food, my mom mid-laugh. It looked exactly like every Thursday dinner we'd ever had. Except I wasn't there. I stared at it longer than I should have. Then I texted him, "Dinner last night." He replied almost instantly, "Yeah, it was random. Didn't think you'd make it. Didn't think I'd make it." I read that line 3 times, trying to figure out when I had become someone who wouldn't show up, because no one had asked me. And for the first time, something small shifted inside me. Not pain, not yet, just a quiet question I couldn't shake. When did they stop expecting me to be there? At first, I told myself it was nothing. People get busy. Plans change. Not every dinner needs to be a full family event. That's what I repeated in my head, over and over. Like if I said it enough times, it would feel true. But then it happened again. This time it wasn't a photo. It was my mother. We were on the phone, talking about something small, groceries, I think, when she casually said, "Your aunt loved seeing everyone last weekend." I frowned. "What do you mean?" There was a pause. Too short to notice if you weren't listening carefully. Too long to ignore if you were. "Oh, we had dinner. It was last minute. Everyone was there." I asked. "Yes," she said quickly. "Well, mostly." I didn't say anything for a second. "Was I invited?" Another pause. This one heavier. "We assumed you were busy." There it was again. Busy. The word started to follow me everywhere. It showed up in texts, in missed calls, in explanations that never quite explained anything. "You're always working. You've got your own life. We didn't want to bother you." But no one actually asked me. Not once. And the more I thought about it, the stranger it felt. Because I wasn't distant. I hadn't pulled away. If anything, I was the one who kept reaching out, checking in, making plans, showing up early, staying late. Nothing about me had changed, but something about them had. I started noticing things I hadn't before. Group conversations that skipped over me. Stories that started halfway through. Like I had missed the beginning, because I had. And every time I asked, the answer was always the same. It just happened. No one ever said they didn't want me there. But no one acted like they did either. And somewhere between those two things, I realized I wasn't being forgotten. I was being quietly left out. The shift didn't come from my family. It came from someone who wasn't supposed to matter. Her name was Lila, an old neighbor who used to live 2 houses down from us. She stopped me one afternoon outside a coffee shop, smiling like no time had passed. "Alara, it's been forever," she said, pulling me into a quick hug. We exchanged the usual updates, work, life, nothing too deep. Then she said something that made everything else fade. "It was nice seeing your family last week," she added casually. "Felt just like old times." I blinked. "Last week? At your parents' place," she said. "Dinner, right? Your mom invited a few people over." My chest tightened. "Oh," I said carefully. "I couldn't make it." Lila's smile faltered just slightly. "Really? That's strange." "Why?" She hesitated, like she was deciding whether to say it. "Your mom mentioned you've been stepping back lately, that you needed space." For a second, I didn't understand the words. Stepping back. Space. "I didn't say that," I replied. too quickly. Lila's expression shifted, polite, but uncomfortable. Oh, I just assumed, you know. The way she said it. The way she said it. Like it was already decided. Already true. I nodded slowly, pretending it made sense. Changed the subject. Smiled when I was supposed to. But inside, something cracked. Because now I understood something I hadn't before. They weren't just leaving me out. They were explaining my absence. Creating a version of me that chose not to be there. A version that didn't ask questions. Didn't show up. Didn't belong. And the worst part, people believed it. Because why wouldn't they? Families don't exclude people for no reason. There's always a story. And mine had been rewritten without me. After that day, I stopped asking questions out loud. Not because I didn't want answers, but because I realized something worse than not being invited. I wasn't supposed to notice. So instead, I started watching. Quietly, carefully. I paid attention to what was said, and more importantly, what wasn't. Like the way conversations shifted when I walked into a room, or how my dad would end phone calls quickly. Like there was something happening in the background he didn't want me to hear. Even my brother, Caleb, started sounding different. More guarded. Like every sentence had been checked before he said it. It didn't feel accidental anymore. It felt coordinated. The confirmation came on a random Tuesday. Caleb called me out of the blue, his voice unusually light. Hey, are you busy this weekend? No, I said, surprised. Why? Nothing. He replied too quickly. Just checking. Just checking. That phrase sat wrong with me. So later that night, I did something I hadn't done in years. I drove to my parents' house without telling anyone. The lights were on. Cars lined the driveway. Voices drifted through the windows. Laughter, plates clinking. The low hum of conversation I knew by heart. A dinner. Another one. I stood there for a moment, staring at the door, feeling something settle inside me. Not confusion. Not even hurt. Clarity. I knocked anyway. My mom opened the door, her smile appearing out of habit, then disappearing just as fast. "Ilara," she said, her voice tight. "We didn't expect you." I glanced past her. Everyone was there. Everyone. "Yeah," I replied quietly. "I figured." She hesitated, blocking the doorway just enough to say everything without saying it. "We're kind of in the middle of something." I nodded slowly. Of course they were. And for the first time, I didn't ask to come in. Because I finally understood. Whatever was happening inside that house, I wasn't meant to be part of it. I didn't go home right away that night. I sat in my car, engine off, hands still on the steering wheel, staring at a house that used to feel like mine. Something inside me had shifted, and I couldn't unsee it anymore. This wasn't distance. It wasn't miscommunication. It was design. The truth didn't come from my parents. It came from Caleb. 2 days later, he showed up at my apartment unannounced. That alone told me something was wrong. He never came over without texting first. He looked off, restless, like he hadn't decided whether he should be there. "I didn't know you stopped by," he said. "I didn't stop," I replied. "I just wasn't let in." He exhaled, running a hand through his hair. "It's not like that." "Then what is it like?" Silence stretched between us. Then he said something I don't think he meant to say out loud. "Dad thinks it's better if you're not around right now." My chest tightened. "Better for who?" "For everything," he muttered. "That wasn't an answer. That doesn't make sense," I said. "Why would my presence be a problem?" He hesitated again. Too long. Then finally, "It's about the estate." The word landed heavier than I expected. "What estate?" Caleb's eyes flicked up to mine, like he had already gone too far. "There's a trust," he admitted quietly. "It was set up years ago. For all of us." A cold, steady feeling spread through me. And things changed," he said. "Dad added conditions." "What kind of conditions?" He swallowed. "Participation," he said. "Being involved. Showing up." I stared at him. "I've always shown up." "I know," he said quickly. "But if you're not there, if it looks like you stepped back." The sentence didn't need finishing. Everything clicked into place. The dinners, the excuses, the story they told about me. They didn't forget to invite me. They made sure I wouldn't be there. Because if I wasn't present, I didn't count. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was angry, because for the first time, everything felt still. Like the story I had been living and had finally stopped pretending to be something else. The next morning, I called my father. Not emotionally, not impulsively, just directly. "I know about the trust," I said. There was a pause on the line. Not surprise, not denial, just silence that already knew what I meant. Then he said, "Who told you?" That was it. Not "that's not true." Not "you misunderstood." Just, "Who told you?" I closed my eyes. "So it's true." Another pause. Then my father sighed like he had been carrying something heavy for a long time. "It's complicated," he said. That word again. Complicated. The word people use when they don't want to name what they've done. "I didn't remove myself from this family," I said quietly. "You wrote me out of it." "Ilara?" "No," I interrupted, my voice steady now. "You didn't forget me. You just needed me absent enough for it to work in your favor." Silence again. This time, heavier. My mother finally spoke in the background. Her voice distant but sharp. "We did what we thought was necessary." "For what?" I asked. No answer came. Because there wasn't a clean one. That was the truth I had been circling all along. There was no accident. No misunderstanding. Just decisions made without me. Then justified by my absence. I took a slow breath. "I'm not asking to be included anymore," I said. "I'm just informing you I won't be erased quietly." And I hung up. Weeks passed after that. No dramatic fallout. No final explosion. Just distance settling into its permanent shape. But something in my life finally opened up after that. I stopped waiting for invitations. Stopped decoding silence. Stopped measuring my worth by empty chairs. And eventually I built something new. Not a replacement family. A different one. Where presence wasn't conditional. Where I never had to wonder if I belonged at the table. Because I was the one who said it. And I never had to ask twice.